feels so good.
Oh my God, it feels so good.
Feels so good.
Oh my God, it feels so good. Feels so good when you treat me like no other, no other. Feels so good when you call me your lover, your lover. Feels so good, one lucky brother, lucky brother. It feels so good, oh yeah, it feels so good.
Thank you so much for accepting to meet up with us and take some time out of your schedule to, speak to us. I'm with Uyanda right now, who is the co-creator and producer of the Nganawe Live channel. If you've watched any of the recent podcasts we've posted on the channel, you would have seen her. For everybody who's watching, welcome back to the Nganawe Live YouTube channel. Today we have the Nganawe Live YouTube channel, the Real Recognized Real podcast specifically. Today we have Nosipho Ngoasheng as our very, very special guest. This is the biggest guest we've ever had, guys.
Thank you so much, Nosipho, for coming through.
Milestone.
Guys.
Yeah,
thanks, guys. Nice. And also, thank you for pronouncing my surname properly. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah. So yes, we are going to be speaking today about a few things. We'll try to keep it short and brief, but the main topic will mostly be the much anticipated, long awaited Blood and Water season 2.
Bangers reloaded.
Yeah, a banger of a show, the biggest South African Netflix original series.
And
I think
the
best and biggest African original
definitely.
series. I think I want to push it to that. I'm not sure about my stats, but I believe that. How are you?
How am I?
Yes.
I'm okay. I'm good. You know what? I'm alive. I'm healthy. Feeling blessed. Feeling. I'm mourning winter already, but I'm waiting to see what spring has in store for us. That's how I am. How are you guys?
We're good. I actually did see on your Instagram post where you're talking about how you're already mourning winter, and that's something we kind of have in common, I guess. Because I'm also not a fan of summer that much. But this winter was very cold for me. So yeah, I think I'm kind of ready for summer.
So in terms of how you are, how are your excitement levels? How are we in September?
The release of season 2. I mean, I you know what? I don't know. I'm a weird person, guys. I don't get overly excited for anything. Sometimes it's a fault, to be honest, but I'm excited and mostly nervous. Because I think there's season 1 was one thing because there was I think no one really had expectations. No one really knew what it was going to be, what was going to happen, how it was going to do. And now I feel like there's a lot of expectation. And a lot of people have thrown theories around of what they think the story is going to be and blah, 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 and all of that. So I think for me, I'm excited to finally be done and have it like to the point where, well, the audience now will think whatever they want to think, but I'm also nervous because I think from an audience perspective, but also just all the people who worked on the show. I mean, a lot of them don't get to see it until it airs, so I think it's something that of everyone, I really hope that they're part of it.
Okay.
All right.
And then, so speaking of Blood and Water, can you just take us back to when like the idea first hit you? Like, how did it even come to be? What was the process? You don't have to, go into depth necessarily, but just a slight summary of, I was picking apples and then I was like, hey.
I wish I could say that I was picking apples or something as inspirational as, oh, the idea just came. It was quite intentional, to be honest. So we were, my team at Gambit Films, we often have kind of like workshops and, just throw around ideas of new story lines and things that we want to kind of move on with. And we just finished our first feature film, which was Nosipho Ngoasheng, and we kind of were thinking, okay, well, what's next? What else do we want to do? And so we sat around, we were looking at books, we were reading stuff, and we were reading articles, we were throwing around random ideas, and this was just one of those things that was like a log line at that point in time that we had, and we threw out the log line. We actually semi-soft pitched it to some other local networks as well, and then we pushed on a little bit more with the idea in terms of, and initially it was actually more structured, far more as a from an investigational mystery point of view, looking at it more from the police perspective and the family perspective. So it was far more of a drama in that sense, initially as an idea. And when we pitched it to Netflix, amongst other things, yeah, we actually had a proper pitch for another big world building series that we thought, yeah, this is the one they're gonna go for. And we built like a whole deck and had a whole thing for it. And Blood and Water was literally like a little paragraph when we pitched it to them. But they really liked it. And what they liked specifically was more the character at the center of it. They liked the idea of this young girl who you know, had so much agency. And then obviously the premise, you know, idea of young girls finding each other at school, but the idea that there's one girl who's like set to investigate and do and prove that this is her sister. They really liked that idea. So they kind of asked us, hey, how can you guys switch this up and change it? Maybe look at making it a YA, young adult show, instead of it being this more serious, semi-procedural. So yeah, that was essentially how the idea came about. And of course we wanted to work with Netflix. So we were like, yeah.
Definitely, anything you say.
Actually, we were thinking about that already. It's such a great idea that you have.
Yeah. It's interesting.
That's really how that came about.
It's interesting that you say that, because when we were speaking yesterday, I said, when we were speaking yesterday, and I said, if the characters on Blood and Water were working in corporate, but just basically not students, it was going to be a totally different thing. So now that you're saying that you actually didn't have an idea for younger kids, it's making sense. I get you.
Yeah. It was far more focused on the Khumalo family and their search to find the daughter, the cops, and the mystery behind, you know, the trafficking syndicate. It was a lot more pushed in that direction. But I think it was a happy accident that it ended up being a YA show, because as soon as Netflix said that, it actually really did spark that for us, that, you know what, we haven't had a young show in high school for young people in a really long time in South Africa. We haven't had it, and the last ones that I really truly remembered, I mean, I know there's been some here, but more telenovela style. The last one I remembered from my youth, which is not going to age me, but it was easy, you know. And for me, I remember like that show had such an impact on me when I was growing up, and I loved it, and I still think it's one of the best shows that's ever been made in this country. But it was so gritty, it was so hard, you know. It was so like in your face, and about a lot about a reality to portray. It also depicted, especially after a specific way, and because we knew Blood and Water was going to be a show that would be on an international platform right away. We weren't gonna try and sell it elsewhere. It was like, this is it, it's on an international platform already. It was really important for us to start to show other sides of what South Africa, Black people, you know, what we're like in other lifestyles, other parts of this country that aren't just about struggle, that aren't just about apartheid, aren't just about poverty, but it's about, you know, young people going through young people things, and who also happen to just live these magnificently crazy lifestyles.
Yeah.
While we're still on that, you mentioned that you guys were also trying to pitch a world building series to Netflix, and you guys thought that one. I'm not gonna probe too much about that, but is there still a possibility we might get something like that?
No, you know what? I don't know. Look, I mean, wouldn't it be great though if that did happen?
Amazing. Actually.
Yeah,
we deserve that as South Africans.
Perhaps. You know, perhaps, but I think for me, I don't really dwell too much on trying to plan Netflix's a strategy. I think they've got their own strategy of what they want to do. For us, we just want to tell stories. I want to tell stories that I really love, that I'm really interested in. And I always want to find a way to feel like I'm connected to the characters. So whilst that story is still there, it may find a home one day, it may not. We also, I mean, I think it was so many years ago that was developed. I've also moved on with other ideas and other things that we're developing all the time. So who knows? Guys, I don't want to speak for other people. People know what their own strategy is. I just want to tell really great stories, and have fun doing it.
While still on that, can you just ask, so when finally things change and you guys, develop the story into a YA type of story, and when you were writing the first season, was there an idea of an ending in mind of how it's going to go, or did it slowly get, change from what you had initially planned as you guys went into pre-production and production?
In terms of how it would end in the first season, I think I think the whole team, we always knew what our goal was and where we were going. And we've always kind of also understood the full story of where we want to end up as far as the show goes, because I think it is one of those shows that has an ultimate ending. It's not going to be like a show that goes on forever and ever. Also, I think the actors also can't be
yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think we always had that. But in terms of this is just how it goes with writing, right? You have an idea and you have your basic structure, but the mechanisms and the mechanics of how you get there, that they can kind of like veer off in different directions as well and change as you go. And as you get notes, when you workshop, when you're in the writer's room and you're throwing out things and you're throwing story, characters also take on a life of their own, and suddenly a plot that you thought you was definite, like this was definitely going to happen, it's like it just feels disingenuous to the character now because you've built a certain character and you're down that road with him. So the mechanics of how we got there, that definitely changed in the writer's room. During prep. That then also changed because of production limitations and its own issues that always come up. When you start thinking about like the crew you have, the cast you have, the locations you're able to get access to, the budgets you have, the schedule you have. The schedule, guys, is like the ultimate thing as well. Such a decider of so many things. It's like, okay, I know you wanted to go here and here and here, but you can't because you actually don't have the time. So now you must just, how do you rewrite this thing here? So for example, we were writing the first season, which is very different to how the second season has played out in terms of the prep process. But because of how fast the turnaround was with the first season, we pitched the idea as a basic idea. I think it was like the end of December in 2018, January, sometime later in January, like they were like, okay, cool, this is what we want to do it. Let's go ahead. And then by like February, we were starting to write, and then we were in prep, I think by April, we were in prep. So it was very short. So we were writing the scripts, a lot of them while we were in prep. And then like the last 2 episodes were being written while we were filming. So that also placed a lot of pressure. And then some things had to change in terms of, this is where this scene's now going to play out instead of wherever we had thought initially. Which has been different with the second season, which I think is a good thing, but also makes no difference because ultimately things always change anyway. But we were far because of COVID and just the delay in that first shutdown that we had. It meant that certain things in terms of the scripts had a little bit more time to be written in that time, and that was a good thing in a lot of ways because we had a lot more scripts to work with going into production. We had them all, but it also made it, sometimes that makes no difference, right? Because then you have to change things anyway. As things are cast, as your locations fall through, some of them. Guys, last year was very interesting. So things changed anyway. And I think that's just the nature of production and writing. Is that things will change, continue, and you just have to adapt all the time. So for me as a director, that's my job.
I like that you mentioned that because that was the next question, was asking between the 2 seasons, so not including COVID, because COVID was obviously a huge factor, but if you were just to try to apples and apples them. Between the two seasons, which was more hectic than the other in terms of, producing from developing, prep, and pre-production,
even story, all of that,
all the way? Which one were you like, okay, it was tougher here or here?
Oh, guys, that's a trick. I can't exclude COVID from it. I'll exclude the break, but I can't exclude COVID because it was such a part of making the second season. I mean, we were filming in the middle of the second wave. So it was intense. And a lot of things, even in thinking about it for us, was like the first decisions we had to think about was, okay, the world has experienced COVID now and we're in the middle of it. Do we adapt the story?
Yeah. We're about to ask that.
Right. So that's the first thing you have to do. And then we have to go, wait, in what we thought was clever, the first season we established it happening in 2020 already, and the kids are like in August, September 2020. So actually, we can't suddenly bring COVID out of the blue when the world's been experiencing it all along. So now we have to set this in just a world where it doesn't happen, right? And also the nature of our show, the a lot of limitations would come about it, like COVID was a part of it. So how do we then navigate filming safely without, for the actors and doing and bring the show to life still whilst navigating that? And so all of that was really tricky. And I think you have a lot of expectations going into second season, because for us, it was also important to not just be like, oh, here, it's more of the same thing. It's exactly the same. We wanted to kind of like, level up a little bit on our end as well. So I think both were tricky. I think both were very, very difficult. What was nice was that the actors knew their characters really well at this stage. So it wasn't like still trying to find them. There was a lot more working together, and in that sense also moving a little bit faster on that end of things. But guys, I don't know, maybe I was experienced with it. But as for me, I think it was the same. I think there were different problems, but both of the same magnitude. Different things that were exciting, but both of the same magnitude. All the different challenges, everything. I think it's the same. I don't know. I've never been in any production myself, ever, that was like, oh, that was really smooth sailing.
I don't think such a thing exists.
What we thought we were gonna do is exactly how it happened. I've never been a part of that, ever.
Yeah, I don't think that's even a thing.
If it ever happens, you might have done something wrong.
You
might have overlooked something very important.
But that's still my dream. I still believe one day I'll be on some massive production with all the money in the world, all the time in the world, and all the reshoots in the world, that like exactly what was planned is exactly what
Thank you. I also believe that is possible, hey? No, I really believe that is possible. And you achieve it, yes, you have to achieve it so you can show this thing is possible. So on the second season, there's a lot of new characters. Did that come before, or was it always the idea? And yeah, we've seen that they are very critical, these characters.
They are critical. So I think, look, it's from a story perspective, it was always going to be something that was going to happen. Some of it happened a little earlier than, it's a back and forth in terms of, do we bring them in right from the beginning? Do we stagger them? How do we do it? Thinking about the world also expanding so that the stories don't become stale, that we're constantly feeling like we've got something fresh happening in the show. So that was always, and I can say that some of these characters are going to be critical. Highly critical. And they bring excitement for me, I think, in the show. And also, but from a pure like production level things and things that what we are also about from a value perspective, as Gambit Films and as Netflix too, we've always wanted to be able to be a part of like opening up opportunities and opening up spaces for young new actors, faces, crew as well. So it wasn't just new faces, on camera, it's also new faces behind the scenes. So we've got a new director who joined the team as well. She took on an episode, and she's done a really great job with the episode, in our opinion. We love her. We've got we had our writers who were initially just dialogue writers in the first season. They've stepped up in this new season, and they also took on different episodes. So it's not just like the writing team wasn't just my trusted Travis Tati and Darren Joshua, you know, as the three of us in our little corner. It was, we grew as a team, and I think that also helped the show. We had a lot of new elements to it, which was, I think, really, it's always been something that we've an ambition of ours to be able to do this, not just with the show, but with everything we do, to be honest.
That's very interesting. So you were speaking about just the addition of new characters and actors, and one thing I wanted to touch on, even every time when I watch Blood and Rose, is I wonder what the casting process was like. I'm sure you've gotten this question before many times, but like on both seasons, but also maybe focusing more on this new season, how was it like? Was it any different than the first time, knowing which characters you wanted and how you wanted them? Yeah. Also, sorry to disturb you. Do you just know when you've got the person, you're like, this one might be the one, or is it it takes a bit more time, you kind of have to go back and forth and keep reviewing the auditions, or do you almost always know from the minute they come for the first time, Uguti, this might actually be the person we need?
It's a bit of both. And it's always dependent on the character and the actor as well. So I know that I'm very hands-on with casting, and even with casting directors, it's usually very much like, I think maybe most of them get over me a little bit because I'm very much like, I want to be involved, I want to talk to them. So the process, just to talk overall process, is very simple, and I think there's nothing radical about it in itself. It's just, we had a casting director who was really there to help us first season, and then we had another casting director second season, and really their job was, they've got their fingers everywhere, so they're able to kind of like do the mining for us that we just can't do in terms of our own reach with the world of actors and all that. So they were there running auditions. We put out some calls. We did a lot of, like, especially with this new season, we reached out to some schools as well. We did like theaters, we did some street casting people we saw that we thought were interesting, were brought in, and kind of like, just do your first audition. This is along with agencies, of course. Do your first thing on their own. A lot of it was self-taping this time as well, which was very different to the first run where they'd had a casting director in the room with him. This time, because of COVID, we did a lot of self-tapes. Yeah. And then from that point, it was then great move to, then I would work with him. Or one of the other directors, if I wasn't able to, would also just work with him to do a callback in the short, like once we shortlisted people that we thought, yeah, this definitely had potential. For me, in terms of my gut instinct, I use that a lot in castings. I use it in two ways. I don't only look at performance, I also look at response to me as a director. So I take time to just talk to the actors coming in before they, because we get a lot of people who've never acted before. For example, one of the new characters in the show is played by Leroy Siafa, and this was his very first role ever. And so it's really important to me that they feel relaxed, because what can happen is, if you're nervous, you don't give your best performance in an audition and you can be written off. But really, that's got nothing to do with whether you're going to deliver on the day. That's just about you being nervous right now. So I try to talk and get to know them. And sometimes the talking will let me know a lot more about the person and about their capabilities and whether they're going to work as a character than the actual audition will. So that's really how I work. And then in the actual audition itself, it's like, are you responding to the direction I'm giving you? Because I've auditioned amazing, incredible actors, legends, who they do something, but they've already planned it in their heads and they're not responding to me as I'm saying. And sometimes I'm giving them terrible direction. Well, not bad direction, but like I'm taking them down the wrong path. But it's just to see, will they trust me? Are they going to go with me where I need them to go? So that's generally the process, and that was really the process this time around as well. But we were quite intentional this time also in looking for new faces. We were really specific, and we want actors, especially amongst the young characters, the high school kids, we wanted them to feel like new for the audience, that they're like, oh, I don't know this one from this show and that show and that show. To be like, who are these guys? Okay, believe them as these characters and these characters alone.
That's actually very nice.
Yeah, that's really great.
That's very great,
and I love how intentional you actually you were about that. Because sometimes in most cases it happens, but as a
no, I'm laughing at the fact that it should give you a wrong direction just to see if you can trust me.
Yeah.
And now because you've already planned your thing, now you're messing up. And so just listen to what the director is saying and do it.
Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah. Because you get a problem sometimes, guys. I don't know. I don't know if other filmmakers get this a lot, but you do experience sometimes where incredible, very, very powerful actors are, sometimes it's about the journey working together to find the moments. And not me kind of being a dictator and saying you must do it like this, but not the actor also being like, no, but this is what I've planned. This is what I'm doing, because we both have different pictures that we're trying to bring together to make something really special. So that for me, really, also we just work with people. And so sometimes I'm like, I would rather work with someone I really like, who's maybe not the best yet, than someone who I'm like, hey, but I'm like the drama we're going to be facing every day. I would much rather work with someone I like, because then I know we can really try and work together. And that's the same thing. So even with Kosi, who plays Figile, with season 1, it was the same. It was just like, with Amma as well, who I didn't know. Even Natasha, I actually didn't know Natasha Tane at all.
Really?
Going into no, I didn't. Going into the audition process. I'll be very honest. I try my best to stay off of from the celebrity status, the actors, what are they doing? I try to just kind of always come into any space with, let's talk about your work. Let's do, what are you working on? Who are you now in this room? So I had no idea who she was, but her first audition was and same with Kosi, same with Amma. They were just so striking. There was something there. And then it was a matter of, right, now, can I get you there? Can I get you to where I want you to be? Because you've already brought all the goods.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
So the next question, though, I was going to ask was actually, you might have actually even covered a part of this question when you were speaking about how production for Blood and Water season 1 and 2 differ from each other or are similar. But it's basically like, what have been the highs and the lows of shooting, of producing Blood and Water, both season 1 and 2, but what have been oh, I remember this day, blah, blah, and that was for me, one of the best days. And this day was when I probably even doubted that, do I even know what I'm doing?
Oh gosh. The lows always come to be so much quicker than the highs, only because I'm built that way to always dwell on the things I feel I could have done better. So I think, okay, the highs, specifically talking about season 2, there were so many. I think it was just having everyone come back together again. After a long time being apart, it was really exciting coming back and feeling like, okay, we all know now that we can do this, versus with season 1, it was a lot of everyone feeling each other out, supporting each other, but a lot of feeling each other out. It was like the family back together again in season 2, which was really great. It was great also because I love working with actors, I love working with art department. Actually, I love working with all the departments, but I think for me, I love specific, I throw a lot of focus on specific departments because I feel like they're often overlooked in our local productions, and I feel like they're so much a part of bringing that full world to life. So just seeing some of the big events that the art department, that including wardrobe, makeup, and everyone, that they were able to throw together, and then hanging out, because on set, I'm seeing what they're doing, and I'm the one that everyone sends to be like, go check how far makeup is. Why don't you go talk to them? Let's talk about wardrobe and setting out all the looks and everything, and then seeing it come to life for all the big events. That was really, really, really exciting, especially because those weren't necessarily episodes that I was directing. They were really for me, more from a producing perspective, coming in and seeing, okay, what we spoke about has come to life. Amazing how, like, the job that's been done to really capture that. So those were really great days. They're also the most stressful days, because those are often the days that we're like, we're not going to make this day. There's just too much. And so that happens a lot. I think for me in season 2, the difference was I always knew now that even when the pressure is on, I'm like, no, but I know I can do it.
Because you've
done it before.
Yeah.
But it's like we had the pressure on in season 1 and we did it. So this time around, I think the attitude was different from everyone. It was, this is ridiculous, this is busy, this is intense, it's so hard, there's so much to do in so little time. But I think we all knew ultimately we can. And so let's find the way to do it. Season 1 was like, ish, guys, let's figure it out. Let's do it. And then a lot of praying also, both seasons, a lot of praying. Guys, like real praying. I'm talking about like standing in corners, like praying, like guys, we're gonna do this. Let's pray in tongue, let's do whatever we can. That was happening too. So I think that, but one of the I think in terms of the lowest lows was probably just every time we had a COVID scare. Which we had a number of, but I think the pressure of, you know, going through that, and also knowing that like a lot of our crew, we were, and myself as well, you know, I had family who had COVID, some of them being hospitalized while we're filming, you know, family, crew members losing family while we're filming. And then every time there's a COVID scare on set, it's the responsibility, both as a director, but also as a producer of the show, of, oh gosh, did we not protect our people enough? What if something really happens and something terrible happens? And we're so fortunate that no one got seriously ill during the production, but we did have to shut down a number of times. And that really just came down to, I think the team really tried to navigate safety as much as possible. And we had a great deal of support from the Netflix team as well, in terms of making sure that we could keep the team safe as far as possible. That was the low. Highs, a bunch of just like knowing we could do it, and seeing some of the spectacular set pieces that we managed to get this season, which is really, really exciting.
A question that I really have always wanted to ask you is, how does it feel? Like, you've mentioned the pressure, the difficulty of it, the impossibility of it, all of that, pulling it off. And first of all, from season 1 and season 2, but I think this one is more focused on season 1. You finally pull it off, so that's one victory, yay. But did you, first of all, ever anticipate that it would be as big as it is? And then number 2, just pulling it off and then seeing how big it became, how were those 2 feelings?
Yeah, I think pretty awesome. I think it's pretty, I mean, that's what I can say. I don't think, look, I mean, guys, I don't know, does anyone go, oh, I really hope, you know, everyone goes, I really hope this does really well and everyone loves it. That's what you hope for. But I don't think anyone actually expects that it's going to do as well as it did, especially for me, in my opinion. I didn't expect it to do as well from an international perspective. I hoped it. We certainly knew what we were doing in terms of trying to tell the story in a way that we felt like would reach an international audience. That's what I've always done. I'm always trying to, I love genre, so I'm always actually trying to think about what are the little things that we can place in that people will be like, oh, this feels familiar, but really specific still at the same time. So I hoped, but I didn't expect it. So I don't know. I think the feeling is just, it's awesome. Like, it was great. It was great. It is great. I hope I feel great again after season 2.
Actually, I wanted to ask, the greatness that came in Protagonist season 1 was amazing. But there was also a little bit of criticism here with regards to the music specific.
Yes, I know.
How did you guys as a team deal with that? And what are there any changes you did to make sure that as you go to season 2, these things are fixed and stuff like that?
Well, I think we always try and respond to whatever criticism we think is productive and constructive. I think there's also some criticism that I was like, you know, this one is a taste thing versus like this is, because I think from telling stories, there's like a way that you want to do it, and then there's a way that other people can think you should do it as well. So in season 1, the difference for us was that we had a very limited catalog of music, because no one knew what we were about, no one understood the show, no one, and a lot of it, if I may divulge some secrets now, is that a lot of the music came quite late in the process. As well. And so it wasn't really necessarily planned along the way, because I think ultimately what happened was, from Netflix's perspective, they were like, we really love the show, we really believe in it, we love what you guys have done, but there's like we feel like we want to add more of the local flavor of South African music. So and then it was about, well, what can we find, who's willing, and really the artists who had our back. Who were supportive in this process, which we're really grateful for. This going into the season, a lot more people were just like throwing music at us, but then there also had to be, it's also about like curating that and going through it. I think we've done what we could. I don't know that I'll ever please everyone. I'm sure there'll be criticism again, but I'm also just like, I've always had my use of music in anything is always, I try to do unexpected things. So some things people will go, oh, but why this, right? This, I wouldn't have expected this for this, it doesn't. And I'm like, I get it. But you can get stuck on, you can think about music from a lyrical perspective. You can also think about music from a tonal perspective. You can think about it from all these different things. So, and as guys, I'm sure there'll be criticism again. It is what it is.
Look, honestly, it is what it is. You can't escape it.
You know, I can't be out here trying to please everyone. Like, it's got to be for me what feels right. And I think for all of us, it's about what feels right. And also the resources we have at hand, what access we have.
You speak about how when you create something, people have an idea of what they think should be. That was me after watching season 1 of Blood and Water. I was like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It touches on so many things, like so many things, so many deep, dark things. And I wanted to ask you, was that approach intentional? Is there something you want to do with all these issues that you tackle in the show, but without like being too much on the face about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes to all of that. So I think my favorite character personally is Wendy, and for me she was a tool to be able to be like, well, there's things that I want to be able to talk about in terms of the worldview and where we're at in our country and the world and whatnot, but there's certain things that like it's just there's no real place for it in the show. It's not that kind of show. It's not a political show. It's not, so there are things where it's like we can just touch these things, allow people to have their own conversations without necessarily preaching. I don't believe in preaching in the work, but my approach in everything I do is always, I've got to know what I'm talking about. I've got to know why I'm making this thing, not just entertain, right? I think entertainment for the entertainment's sake isn't really what I know how to do. So I will always try to slip in a little something to be like, let's highlight this issue. Let's talk about this issue. Let's also subvert this thing, this stereotype that people might have about this group of people or whatever. So it was intentional. There's also more of it this season again. Hopefully, and it'll always be for me. I'll never point out to say this thing is the one that you need to talk about. I think it's about whatever people want to take away from it. I think any filmmaker tries to put out a little bit of themselves into the stories they tell within limit. I think if you look at if you see my film, Nosipho Ngoasheng, very different tonally, very, very different subject matter, but worldviews aren't always differing because I have a specific perspective in the world.
It's I love that you actually mentioned that, because that was going to be my next question, Uguti. What is as an artist and as a filmmaker, you'll always have something that you, even if it's just a droplet of yourself that you pour onto your work each and every time. So that's what I wanted to ask, Uguti. Like, what could you say, something that you could be like, I put a little bit of myself in this. when I was doing season 1 or season 2. It's that's, if you see that, you see a side of me. It may be a tip of an iceberg, but
you know people
Look, I think there's probably a little bit of me, a little bit of everyone in a lot of things, and all over the place. I don't think that there's one thing. I think I don't know how to answer this question. You know, I relate to all these characters in very specific ways. I love all of them. I care about all of them. I can't say that I lived the same lifestyle as any of these characters.
Yeah.
Maybe the closest would be Puleng, but also Puleng gets away with some crazy things that I'm like, I would have had like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like several times. Like I was never the kid to sneak out of the house to go to a party. I wasn't even allowed to go see a movie with my friends at the cinema. Like I was rarely allowed to do that. So I think it's more about worldviews versus experiences, where I would say that I put more of myself in some of these characters. It's a view of the world. I think for me, it's things that I feel a lot of us place emphasis on, where I'm like, why do we have to care about this? It shouldn't be a big deal. Let's move on. It's also things about where I'm like, there are things that Wendy mentions and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely my point of view, but we don't have to dwell here. I don't have to preach about it. This is a point of view. Other people have it, but she goes crazy. Obviously, she's like a little bit, her perspective on the world is one thing, but her memes are another thing. And I think it's always about, for me, sprinkling little bits of that through everyone. I think even a character like Utandega, who's a mom, and I'm not a mother of any child in the world, but like, even there's probably a little bit of myself, a little bit of us in every little thing that we do. I know Darren, there's a bit of him. Travis is a bit of him. It's everywhere, guys. You can't help it. I'm sorry, I'm not answering you specifically.
I get you. You are making sense, yeah.
You mentioned what you call this. Puleng gets away with a lot. That's funny because that was one of so it was the music and that part was one of the main criticisms of season 1. She's like Sherlock Holmes, like
not a very good Sherlock Holmes.
Not really, yeah.
But for her age.
I mean, also Sherlock Holmes isn't that great of a detective himself. He is the greatest in the world, but he kind of slips up here and there. So I'm not being too hard.
All the time. She slips up every time. I actually heard someone being like, it was someone's podcast or something. Someone being like, hey, this girl Puleng actually shouldn't be a detective because she's really terrible. She's always like getting caught by someone and then has to pretend she did something else. And that's for me, that's a bit of a trope from the genre perspective. That's just what it is. Like, it's one of those things you plant in there. She can't be perfect. She can't be. Also, the reality is she's a kid, so she's impulsive. I think her character is that once she set her mind to something, she goes for it, and she's impulsive, and then that's the youthfulness of her. The impulsivity, the idea of this feeling of kind of being indestructible, I think you have when you're really young as well, that like, no, I can just do it. I can just put myself in really dangerous situations. I'll figure it out. I think about that a lot. And even for me, as protected and as sheltered as I was as a kid, I can think now of moments where I'm like, Nosipho, that was really dumb what you did there. How could you have thought you would get away with that? And then somehow you do. You get away with these things when you're young and you get older. So there's that. But I think from the relational perspective with her parents, she gets away with a lot. And a lot of South Africans had a lot of hard time, like a really hard time being like, this girl, Gabi, like, can talk to her parents like this. But then I'm like, and my brother's going to hate me for saying this, but he's like, he was born in 2000. All right. And I look at him in a lot of ways to think about these kids and what their experience is. He gets away with a lot. Like, talk to my parents and say things and have, like, I wasn't allowed to lose my temper. Right. I wasn't allowed to be like, you say that and it's this kid throws tantrum, bangs doors, does all kinds of things. And like, I see my parents stumped and I'm like,
yeah, tired.
And I love him. I love you, Kwanele. You're amazing. But there are differences. And I think it depends. I think there's the aspect of us trying to understand. For me, it was really about the generational difference. in this. And then also understanding from the parental perspective of the guilt that they have, knowing that they've been neglectful parents because of being stuck on this one child that they never had, that they lost. And so there's a lot of guilt. And I think teenagers, and specifically Puleng, she's smart enough to know how to play and manipulate people to get what she needs from them. Even though I don't think she does it consciously. She's not an evil master planning everything, but just the nature of her character is that she knows how to get what she wants and how she needs what she needs. And sometimes that's about manipulating people. Sometimes it's about manipulating the situation. Sometimes it's about lying, but always for a good cause in her mind.
In her mind. Her mind.
Yeah. So
I do really want to see a perfect character, though. Who wants to see a really respectful, really young,
definitely
like your protagonist? They have to have flaws.
No, I don't want her to be perfect. She's fine. It's just sometimes I'm like, she also needs to get a wake up call, even if it's like for one episode, just a wake up call, and then she can carry on with whatever she's doing. Yo, Puleng, yes.
yeah.
Well, maybe that'll come. We don't know. I think she gets a few wake up calls. I think in season 1, maybe a little bit less, but here and there, yes. But I think going into season 2, there's a few wake up calls, and there's a few people who also call her on her BS as well, who are able to be like, we see who you are and we see what you're doing. But at the same time, if you understand someone's cause, and when you care about someone, I think you also allow yourself to be pulled into their trap every now and then. You know?
Here comes Wade.
I didn't say that.
I actually wanted. Oh my God, Ismail, you can carry on.
Okay. So one question that I had is like a fun fact question, something that nobody would have guessed, that we'll never get to know. Maybe like, do you guys? Here's a fun fact. Maybe it was never ever supposed to be Puleng. It was actually, some random fun fact that you had.
Yeah.
It could be anything, honestly. It doesn't
Specifically
have to be
about blood and water.
Yeah, about blood and water. That you guys will never guess. Actually, maybe Puleng was initially supposed to be Tep or something.
Ooh, okay. A really silly fun fact is a lot of the characters are actually, just because I'm really lazy with naming characters sometimes. So it was like, okay, who can I think of in my family? Pull names. So some of them like, Haibo, why Kamala Haibo? Like, for example, Upumelele Kumalo. I have a cousin, her name is Upumelele Owagwavezi. Right. So
wow.
Things like that. So she's always like, you can't just, but how did you do that? Is it based on me? I'm like, have you ever disappeared? So that's a really silly, like, I'd have to think about others that were like more specific, but that's the thing where it's like, all of us are like that though. Like a lot of the character names are just like, okay, who do we know? Let's just pull this person. I think sometimes they like just get stuck on a name. It's just, that can go on forever. So we move on from that. Yeah. And then another fun fact, and Amma's probably going to kill me for revealing this, but she initially really, like, I made her sing that part, that part that Rolene does in the song I Need You.
Yes.
Like we made her sing it in studio for us because we're like, no, we're going to use your voice specifically for this. We want it to be you. And like, so we were like, sing, and she's adamant that she's a terrible singer, which I don't think she's terrible. But yeah, that was interesting because she was completely mortified and she had to do it more than once. And the second time was possibly just for my own pleasure, but it's fine.
Puleng is actually such a sad character because everyone thinks she's a bad person. And when you're watching, like, she is a bad person, but she's not.
Yeah.
Do you get me? Like, she's a bad person, but she's not. Like, her intentions are good.
Good intentions, yeah.
Very good intentions, but everyone else who's watching, like, ever since you came to this school, you've been doing the most. And that's what I wanted to say. She's actually a sad character. Yeah.
She is. I think every writer, of my favorite filmmakers, favorite stories, I always gravitate to characters who are made up of gray as opposed to made up of black and white, right? I think for me, every character, there's no person, I don't believe there are people in the world who are just purely good and purely evil. I think all of us us. It's always situational, and there's always, and I think if you can understand a character's motivations and who they are, it makes them interesting, because then you know what their flaws will be in a given situation and what their strengths will be in a given situation. For me, Boleng is not a bad person per se. As you said, she is, I think, a really good character. She's a really kind and caring and loving young sister who's extremely determined. And her determination and her believing that she must be the one to do things, and her lack of trust of people. She's, in a lot of ways in her family, she's been abandoned by her parents. She hasn't really had support. And so in her mind, she has to do things alone. And that idea of, I have to be the one to do it, I'm alone, usually means she will screw over people who want to help her without realizing that's what she's doing. Because she's determined that she can't trust people. And that she has to solve this thing, and to prove that she has some kind of, like, that, I think what we spoke about with Amma a lot in the beginning was that Boleng has this sense of a lack of value. She doesn't necessarily see the value in herself. She doesn't believe she's good enough. She wasn't good enough for her mom or her dad as the daughter who came after the daughter they lost, right? They've always held on to this one person. I mean, like celebrating her birthday in this big way, you know, every year, where her and her brother aren't. So there's that. Her friends at school, even at school, she has one friend. No one else really cares about her. So she's always been like, I'm me. I have to depend on me. And that flaw is what propels her and will put her in conflict with other people. Because again, from a storytelling perspective, you want to place characters whose values and flaws and strengths will conflict with each other, so that you have something interesting in terms of drama on screen.
Oh, shame, poor Boleng.
Poor Boleng. You mentioned that you gravitate towards stories, or filmmakers rather, who explore characters that are grey. I love that you mentioned that. So this is a double question. Question number one: who are your favorite filmmakers of all time? This is anywhere and everywhere and
in the
whenever.
world, yeah.
And granted, this is not set in stone. You know, I'm sure one day you feel differently.
Yeah, I'm sure one day I'll feel differently. There's a few who move in and out of the list for me. I am a huge fan of, I don't love every film he's ever done, but I love him as a filmmaker. I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan.
Ha!
Woo! Yes, Christopher Nolan, hi!
I knew she was gonna say it. I saw it coming. Like I just saw it coming.
This is going to be the promo for this podcast. This, yes.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yes.
But look, I can't tell you a top three. I can only tell you the filmmakers who I feel like I'm influenced by in a lot of ways, even though I don't always show that in the most obvious ways in the things that I do. And it's not going to be three, so I'm just going to throw the names out. It's Christopher Nolan, it's David Fincher, it's Denis Villeneuve. And I'm obviously very influenced and inspired and love Alfred Hitchcock, specifically from story perspective. I think from just story and creating tension, he's just probably the best that's ever done it. And I love Martin Scorsese mostly in terms of, I think he draws out incredible performances from actors. And I think I've read and studied a lot in terms of just how he works with them. And I love that about him. So yeah, so those of all time, it's a bunch of white guys.
Yeah, you're talking is fire.
That's what makes me sad. That makes me sad.
I get why it makes you sad.
It's Hollywood's fault. We don't blame you. It's their fault, not our fault.
Yeah, the second part of the question.
The second part of the question is your three favorite South African women filmmakers. Yeah, doesn't have to be black as long as they're South African. I think that's the question I wanted to ask.
Obviously you are number one.
I don't know that. Okay, so not all of them are feature filmmakers, although I feel like a lot of them could have made their features by now. I really I'll start with someone who I studied with. She's, in terms of films, it's not a film that, she doesn't make films that I would want to make. I think we have very different tastes, but I really respect her work and the, like, what she produces. So Renee van Rooyen, I'm a huge fan of. We studied together. We were in the same year after. I think she does really beautiful work. I really love and felt honored getting to work with Mabatu Mojo, as a filmmaker. I think she's really great and just really awesome. And she's done really well. She was one of the writers in this new season.
Oh, wow.
And it was just fantastic working with her as well.
Yeah.
Let me think about who else. Female. I think there's a lot more that it's difficult to say that they're my favorites because they've done work, especially work that everyone knows. I think it's just people that I'm studying and following in the background. So for example, I really love and respect Amy Jefter. I think she's done some really great work as a writer, and she's coming up as a director to just be really formidable now. And then others that you should keep a listen out for and watch out for, Tati Piele and Dominique Josie. I think they're just fantastic filmmakers who are on the come up and will do great things. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else.
Yeah.
I'm very specific. I don't know if the directors at Razzles or gave you an inkling of, like, I'm a very specific filmmaker in my mind, the people who I'm like, yeah, I love these guys. I'm very specific. And so I don't know that there's many locally who are doing the things that but I respect them all, because I think actually just being a filmmaker in South Africa is already, like, you're doing the most. And then also being a woman, you're already doing the most. It's quite a tricky landscape. But I also think I'm really excited by the wave of genre films that are coming up of South Africa, because for me, I grew up watching a lot of genre. That's like my love. Like, the first film that I remember watching was It, and I was like 3, and like that stuck with me. I was like, how? Like, this crazy clown, why is he killing these kids? And so for me, I think seeing genre filmmakers coming out now and doing really awesome stuff, that really excites me. And so people should watch South African films, not because they're South African films. Don't think about them as they're South African films. Watch them because these films are telling really awesome stories now, and have been, but they're doing them with excellence in terms of production value too, and telling interesting and varied stories. So yeah, that's what I would say to people who should watch. I don't know, guys, what are these questions you're asking?
So it's really getting a bit more serious.
No, I think it's important to speak about these things because our channel is South African, and the people who watch our stuff, they are South African, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to watch South African stuff. So if there is a director who is killing it, who can tell you, yo man, come support our stuff. Obviously, like yourself, you must go and watch the stuff, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people have a misconception about the production value and quality that we're doing. Yeah, I think for a long time people had that, and it was also story perspective. I think on both sides we've seen huge shifts in what we're able to do as filmmakers. We're not going to be in Avengers anytime soon. We're not going to be making Marvel films, those massive. But I also think it's not about that. I think it's about telling really awesome stories with excellence in whatever capacity that you can. And so for me, I think I'm not gonna love every South African film, just like I'm not gonna love every Hollywood film. I'm not gonna love every film that comes from French cinema or wherever, right? But it's not about thinking about it in terms of like a grouping, and rather being like, watch a film that you think will speak to you, and don't assume it's going to be something just because it's South African.
I definitely like what you said, because people sometimes whatever that word is, story with production, and it's like no.
Misconstruing.
Misconstruing stories with production, and it's like no. A good story is a good story regardless of the budget. It will transcend time. It will transcend race.
It just has to be done with excellence. I do believe in doing things with excellence on screen and pushing ourselves as filmmakers as well, because I think we have a duty to our audience to give them excellence in every way that we can, and not cut corners anytime, and not use budgets also as a restrictive, because I think if you know your budget, you know what you're able to do and then do it well. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that, because you actually practice what you preach. You came out the gate with arguably one of the, not arguably, it is definitely one of the greatest South African films ever made, arguably the greatest. And Anne and I watch a lot of South African films, so we kind of know what we're talking about. No, honestly speaking, not only just as a debut film, as a film by itself. And I'll be honest with you, I think I've said it even in the review if you watched it, I was kind of like, I don't feel like watching this film, like, but you know, I've given myself this duty. And I remember it like it was yesterday. In the first 5 minutes I was in the cinema and I was like, what? Okay, you know, and I'll never forget that experience, because we get a considerable amount of those within a year, but we don't get enough where you go in, whether or not you had high hopes or not, but you get there and you just, from beginning to end, the film has you, you know, number 7, 30. Why didn't you just call it number 37 though? But anyway, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had watching a film. The performances were great. The direction, it's such a very intentional film. It's a very
perfect film.
And I didn't know about you before watching that film. Like when the credits rolled, I was like, what?
We are gonna find you.
Like watching the film, you're like, I just watched a great film, and then you find out it's by Nosipho. You're like, what? What is going on? Is someone playing like, you know? It was such an amazing experience.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So when you speak about excellence, I know what you mean, because I've seen you practice it, even at Blood and Water,
definitely.
you know, both seasons. It's like you're not just talking, but you don't actually, you know, talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. It's always great when you see a filmmaker who's actually on the level that they want to be at and that they think they're at, and obviously with potential to go even beyond that. So for me, I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you for making number 37. Also, if you have never watched that movie before, guys, go watch the review, go watch the movie, which ultimately makes you one of the best filmmakers we've ever seen in South Africa, without a doubt.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Listen, thank you. I'm going to choose to filter all of this, because I think also there's so much room for growth, and there's so many filmmakers who are doing incredible things that just don't get the space. And so for me, I'm like, thank you, but I'm going to choose to filter this into that little box that I'm going to lock away now.
No, but always give yourself credit. Give yourself credit.
For your support.
Every once a year, go to that box, open it up, and just bask in it.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Okay, before we let you go, just one last question, which is, you know, tailing off of this one, is what can we expect coming soon, or not even soon, in the not so far future? Whether it's another series, a TV show, a documentary, whatever, but also very specifically, feature film. What can we expect from you? What can we, and when, rather, roughly? It doesn't have to be specific. Next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
The when is really tricky, because features also work so differently to TV. In terms of funding and getting it together and all of that. So, and also writing. And I've been blessed in that I'm working a lot at the moment, which means my schedule is quite busy, which means also finding time to write it is difficult. So I'm currently reading a lot of scripts, pitching, also working in development, like very, very, very slowly in the background. But as for what I can tell you is I'm really dying to make another feature film. I think that's where I started. It's my love. It's my first love. It's also creatively, it allows for very different expression to what TV or longer formats might do. But yeah, to that end, in the meantime, I'm also trying to just find other expressions of myself and other ways to develop what that next feature might feel like, even if it's not the story itself. So for example, right now I am I'm reading a lot of like books, but I'm also like writing a short story, which is a horror, which is a really exciting one for me because it's like from a scope perspective, it's a lot bigger than anything I've actually done. And it's a short, so it's really cool. But again, it plays into that first genre, that first horror film that I ever saw, that first film I ever saw. But yeah, just expect, hopefully, a feature from me within the next, hopefully, God, please, in the next like 3 years at least, hopefully, God. Yeah, hopefully that'll happen. And I'm really loving sci-fi, I'm loving horror, and I'm loving thrillers, obviously, right now. So hoping to move into those spaces again as a feature.
No, we can't wait to see more from you. Like, I think we're always excited to see anything with your name on.
Yeah.
We're just excited.
Yeah.
I hope it stays that way.
We'll
But
be there.
like I said, we don't have to love everything everyone does. Eh? I don't love every Christopher Nolan film.
No, I definitely get you. But at the moment, you've just been living up to what we saw the first time, and that's really great. So it shall continue.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to. We know you're busy. Sorry for keeping you longer than we planned. But thank you so much for even engaging with us and speaking with us. It means absolutely a lot. All the best. Can't wait to see the reaction for Blood and Water season 2, and we can't wait to see what else you have to offer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Honestly,
Thank
you.
Guys, please subscribe, comment, like, and share.
Oh yes, before you leave, random movie recommendation, top of your head, random thing, doesn't have to matter.
Yeah.
Just a random.
No, it's too much pressure. It's too much pressure. I can't think of anything right now.
You have to think.
Please. Random. That's why it's random.
A really random. It's a really old film, but we watched it again and fell in love with it again. The Birds. Watch The Birds if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
All right, guys, watch The Birds.
Watch The Birds, guys. Thank you very much, Nosipho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you so much, Nosipho. Have a wonderful evening, afternoon.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. But yeah, that was Nosipho Ngoasheng with us. That was a great.
Yeah, that was a great chat.
Yeah, such a lovely person, such a creative person, talented director, one of the best we have. Are you guys ready for Blood and Water season 2?
Yay!
Yeah, we've
Don't tell people.
But
A review is coming.
A review is coming very soon.
A triple R
podcast is also coming. Yeah, sorry.
No, I mean podcast.
Yeah, review is coming very soon. And then we're gonna have a whole discussion around it.
Yeah.
But the review is definitely gonna come before the show premieres on the 24th of September. 2021. I almost said 2019. I don't know why. Yeah, that is, by the way, one day after her birthday. Please send gifts, guys. Please send money.
Send money, not gifts. Send money.
Oh, okay, yeah, money.
Money is more important. Money can buy gifts, but gifts can't buy money.
But guys, if also you can't give us money, if there's a gift, it has to be a good gift also, Pilot. Send it through, something, whatever. Yeah, I mean, if you we love t-shirts, we love graphic t-shirts.
Yeah,
if you have nice stuff, keyword nice, please send it through. We won't mind wearing it on the channel every day.
Yeah, it's gonna be our uniform.
Yeah, it's gonna be our. Anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed that. We hope you guys, enjoyed it as much as we did. We definitely enjoyed it.
We missed recording, guys.
We missed recording. Sorry we haven't been around in a while. For the people who haven't seen us here in a very long time, please what's the word? Please be aware. We are letting you know that we are on Instagram, IGTV.
Yay.
Now live, NQANAWELIVE.
Yes.
And Ayandabing, AYANDABEING.
The lives are usually on your page.
Yeah, but they're also on your page.
I forgot.
Yeah. And we do lives where we do like almost immediate reactions and reviews of movies that we just saw. So far we have Shang-Chi and
what's the Candyman,
and today the date is the 2nd of September, and Shang-Chi is coming out tomorrow, which will be weeks ago once this
so I hope
out.
you watched
our Shang-Chi review before you went to watch Shang-Chi tomorrow.
So go back to the past so you can enjoy the future,
Tenet.
Thank you so much, guys. See you soon.
We'll
Bye
see you
bye.
soon, yeah. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. Follow us at Evil Ewan Nakane and at I and the B. It's when I was live the other way around.
Just put it here.
Yeah.
Evil Ewan Nakane.